Championship week, our last tier list video ranking of the year. It goes by fast. We already have 3 games done, so this one's a little bit interesting because we got to keep in mind with that. At least I don't know if it's better or worse to have those early games. I mean, it sucks that those games kind of sucked, but at least you have an idea of what you need to do, or if you need to chase points potentially or play it safe. But we're going to get into the running back rankings. If you've been with us all year, you already know the first couple of tiers here. Is obviously the number 1 overall guys that we think could finish number 1 overall. We keep it to 5. Gibbs, Barkley, Bijan, Kyron, JT. Put JT in there. He's actually been pretty good. That's if he didn't drop that ball at the goal line, like he would have had, I think, NBA Jam rules, 3 games on fire. So over 100 yards, over 200 scrimmage yards last week. He was just tearing them up on the ground there. And then we have our no-brainers, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Achane, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Chuba Hubbard, James Cook, and then I put Breece Hall in there. He was the one where I was like, is he a no-brainer? Is he not? I don't know. My reasoning before I get your thoughts on that is, he played, I think he got back up to 70% of the snaps. I think more than that, almost 80%. Had 14 carries and 5 catches. So he just feels like almost a lock to give you like at least 3 catches if he plays a full allotment of snaps, probably closer to 4. Guaranteed. So I feel like he's kind of a no-brainer in that sense. But we did already have, we're not including, who'd we have already? We had Derrick Henry go. We had Joe Mixon go.
Charbonnet.
Those guys, Charbonnet, all 3 of those guys would have been no-brainers as well. So there's a case for him not being in here. But anyways, what's your thoughts on Breece and any of those other guys there?
Yeah, I think that was kind of like his first healthy game in the last out of the last few weeks, maybe even since the bye. Like we kind of talked about that last week, that there was some concern coming even out of the bye, and then he didn't have that great of a game. But yeah, no, it's nice to see him bounce back. The Jets, obviously, they still want to keep playing. Like there's a lot kind of on the line for them. Like not like just what do you call it, legacy wise, I guess, like with Devontae and Aaron Rodgers. I almost said Aaron Jones. So yeah, it's good to see them still playing, even though they don't have anything to play for playoff wise. So I think you just gotta throw them right back into the mix and see what you get. I mean, it's against Buffalo too, like who doesn't have a whole lot to play for. We were just talking about that before we jumped on. So not that they're going to lose on purpose or anything like that. But not one of the better run defenses either.
Yeah, they technically do, because I think they're 1 game up on the Ravens, but the Ravens have the tiebreaker, so they want to win the number 2 seed. And if they end up tied with the Ravens, which I think they would have to lose out, Ravens would have to win their next game. Ravens would take it. So they do, but also I think they play the Patriots in the last week or something. So it's almost a guarantee. Yeah, it's funny with Breece because it's like he feels like a huge disappointment this year, and maybe he was. Still averaged almost 90 total yards a game and like 4.5 catches. That's his per game stats. Like that's really good. Like your floor is 13.5 PPR points, essentially, if that's what you're averaging. So touchdowns only 7. I think we expected more. And maybe it's just the overall Jets as a disappointment, which is why we feel that way. But RB2s, interesting tier again with a lot of guys that have already played that would fit into these 2 tiers. Brian Robinson, I've never been a big Brian Robinson fan, and he was definitely proving me wrong at the beginning of the year. But now I feel like I'm a little bit justified because you just look at his game log, like basically since October, it's not good. Like since October 6th, I think he has like 8 catches. So like he becomes, in that case, a touchdown or bust guy. It's not like he's a super efficient rusher, So it's just like, man, I don't know. Like he's going to get work. So I think that's why we have him here. But just something to note there. Jerome Ford was interesting. They played him 80% of the snaps. So if they do that again, I like Jerome Ford this week. Rico Dowdle getting a lot of work, but tough matchup. Rashad White just seemingly doing it, even with Bucky Irving being awesome, and Ramondre Stevenson, which I feel like he barely, I don't know, maybe he doesn't make this if all the other guys, all the other 6 teams haven't played yet. But again, a guy that's getting work. But my biggest thing with him is just not the last 4 weeks he has 5 catches. So if he was giving you like guaranteed 2-3 catches, I'd feel better, but he's kind of not been. So yeah, I put these guys in RB2. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on a couple of these guys.
Yeah, Ramondre is he's getting a little scarier, he's been fumbling quite a bit. I mean, 3 times over the last 5 games. And it's kind of funny because like Antonio Gibson used to still have like he had that problem in Washington. No.
Yeah, Washington.
Yeah. And he fumbled last week too. But it wasn't lost. So like we saw Gibson kind of like he took the majority of the snaps, but like they basically had equal numbers as far as like opportunities, and Ramondre was better. So it's hard to know. Like you got to kind of I think still roll with Ramondre, but I'm definitely a little more skittish on him. But I mean, you could be stuck, like you said, like we're not including, at least 5 guys that would be ahead of him. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like it's kind of like you're probably just still rolling them out there.
If someone told you back in August that Ramondre is going to average 70 total yards a game and probably get close to double-digit touchdowns this year, knowing what you knew, like thinking, okay, and he's a pretty decent pass catcher, I think we would have like been kind of really excited about Ramondre as an RB2 still. Like 70 total yards with, potentially double-digit touchdowns. And then you would assume he's getting like 3 catches a game, but the catches just aren't there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of that's one of the big things, right? With him, like you would think he would have been way more involved in the passing game, but he's basically getting about 2.5 per game right now, which is not a whole lot to write home about.
No.
So yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But I mean, New England, they're kind of figuring out their offense in general, or their lack of an offense. I mean, I feel like they've been doing that since Brady left, but
yeah,
it's neither here nor there.
Maybe it's something to note with Drake May. Maybe he doesn't throw to running backs that much. So, any other guys there you're interested in touching on, or you want to move on?
I mean, yeah, no, I mean, like what you said about Brian Robinson does ring true. Like we did see a big downturn in his opportunities last week, but I mean, Washington, even like playing against Philly, like we kind of should have expected a bad game on the ground, and they were obviously playing a bit of catch up, like for a decent amount of the game. But it is a little, like worrisome for sure. But I think he'll bounce back this week. Hopefully he'll get more than 2 catches, but we shouldn't necessarily expect that. But where's Atlanta's defense against running backs? They got to be
maybe middle of the road. I don't know. They're not.
I see them at 5th.
5th toughest?
Yeah.
Or 5th best?
No, 5th toughest.
Oh, interesting.
So I would not have guessed that necessarily, but I think the Commanders are going to be well in control of this game. So maybe we'll see a little more opportunity from him.
Yeah. And once we get beyond that, it's kind of like, you're in the championship if you're watching this. So it's like, I mean, if you're starting these guys, you probably have a good team and you know what you have in these guys, Madison, ETN, Abdullah. It's the Jags and the Raiders, right? And they're Second, I thought they were going against each other. I think that was last week. But
Yeah,
anyways,
it was.
it's the Jags and Raiders guys. It's like they're getting opportunity. They're basically splitting. Abdullah and ETN are a little bit better in PPR, although Madison has been catching passes. Like they are what they are. They're not very good, but they're going to get opportunity. They're all going to catch passes except for Tank. Tank's a little bit of a touchdown or bust kind of player, kind of like B-Rob, but he doesn't get as many opportunities. So they are what they are. I mean, if you've been starting them and winning and you're in the championship, it probably means you have a really good team, and they're just kind of the cherry on top of whatever everyone else is giving you. So I don't know if we need to spend on this tier or the next tier, and I'll just throw out these guys real quick and then let you talk there. But it's the desperation flex guys, Antonio Gibson, Algier, and then Mostert is in here. Mostert's been getting a little bit more work and stuff like that. So I don't know. Again, if you've been starting these guys and you're here, just keep doing it, I guess. And you know what you're getting. And if they happen to give you a big game, then you probably won your championship, right? So anything you want to touch on there?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think my favorite out of these two guys, and it is a little format dependent, are the Raider guys. Honestly, they're playing the Saints, which we saw what they looked like last week, and it's not like Carr's already been ruled out, Kamara's ruled out, so it's like they don't really have a whole lot on offense. So I kind of like the Raider guys this week. Playing for pride, I guess, basically everyone on that team is, playing almost for next year as far as they got to show something, and
Mm-hmm.
Abdullah is definitely in the twilight of his career, but I've been starting him the last few weeks out of desperation, and so it's kind of funny that he's right above the desperation flex category, and he's been getting it done good enough as a flex. Madison is still scary, but he seems to kind of be the guy there, I guess, out of necessity on the ground. So I still like Abdullah better, but yeah, you definitely are desperate if you're starting these guys.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and kind of what I was saying about Gibson, I think he's right up there. I probably would start Gibson over. Wait, who are they playing? Are they playing Philly?
Bills.
No, they're playing the Chargers.
The Chargers.
Yeah.
Bills last week.
So okay, I think I would slot Gibson in right after the Raider guys. Well, maybe after Abdullah, ahead of Madison, I guess. The Chargers defense hasn't been good as of late against running backs, it seems like.
Yeah.
So that I'm okay with that, especially, their head coach, I don't think I said this, but their head coach is he was even saying maybe Madison gets the start. I don't think that means Ramondre goes away by any stretch, and he can easily get the second snap of the game or something and look way better than Gibson, because we've seen him for years, and we've definitely seen Ramondre be better. So I don't think that's necessarily the case, but low end flex for these guys for sure.
Yeah. And then these guys, I'm interested to see where they should slot in. Kendre Miller is tough. I thought he was going to be much more involved, but that game was out of hand right away with the Packers, which I think you mentioned. There's a good chance that happens.
That was my big worry about him last week. And it played out basically exactly like that. I don't even know who they had on the field. Was it Jamal Williams?
For what?
For
instead of Williams, and then Jordan Mims is a running back as well. That
okay.
I just don't know if we got a clear picture of what Kendre in a close game his role is going to be. Because Mims played 45% of the snaps, but he's a little bit more of their pass catcher. So was he just in there because they were down the entire game? Like, I don't really know. I think this game's going to be closer at least, but I don't know. Where should Kendre Miller, like, should he just be thrown into the flex tier? Like, I don't think we can put him in the RB2
No,
tier.
definitely not RB2. Like desperation flex, I would say. I don't know how you're going to trust him, but
I think I would start him over definitely all the desperation guys and take Bigsby. And just banking on the game's going to be closer and they're going to be able to give him more touches, because I guess that's how I would approach that. So, yeah, that's just, I guess I'd throw him in that flex. I think I would definitely start him over desperation flex guys just for again, like these guys are like, if you're starting these guys and you're in the championship, it probably means you have a really good team. So like, I'll shoot for a little bit of upside with these guys rather than like Algier, who I know is going to give me like 10 carries and whatever he does with that. So yeah, I guess that's how I'm approaching it. Like, guarantee me a championship if you have a big game. And I think Kendre is like one of the few on that list that can do that.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, the next guy that we have up on the where do they go is Javonte Williams, and then right with him is Audric Estime. Like, I don't want to start any Broncos running back, like if it's any of them, it's Javonte, and I think I would start him over Kendre. I don't know. It's kind of tough. Like, they're probably like right around back to back, but there's just no faith on like what's actually going to happen. They are very hot hand approach. There's a lot of guys there. Although a couple of them did get ruled out, right? Is Jaleel McLaughlin going to play?
I thought he was on IR.
It says he's off the injury report.
Oh, okay.
He played. Oh, no, he didn't play last week, but he played the week before that.
Yeah, it's just hard to know. There's like no rhyme or reason. It's funny because I think Javonte's still leading them in snap share, and I think he kind of has been all year. Like, he's still over 50% the last 11 since week 11, but like he's just not getting many carries like he was beginning of the year. But then he can give you a 7-catch game like he just did. And it's like, I don't know. To me, it's probably desperation flex for Javonte, or like maybe a flex. And then Estimate to me is like a bench because he's not going to catch passes, and he's basically like a touchdown dependent type of guy. He has 4 catches in this season, and 3 of them came in one game. So, yeah, I mean, if he gets you a touchdown, you're good. So,
yeah, and I think Audric Estime is below all of these guys. Like,
probably, yeah,
every single one of them. Like, he's got to be in the next category. He's below all the guys in the next category too. I know it's not like a ranking in that way, except for Patrick Taylor, I guess. But
except for, I mean, he is playing the Bengals, so like that could be a shootout game, which is always close. Like, it'd just be back and forth. But yeah, I agree with you there. Big injury tier here, and I need to look up stuff because I made this several hours ago. And J.K. Dobbins was activated. We'll start with him. Was activated and plans to play. I'm gonna make this the bench tier for Audric Estime. I think I'm benching J.K. Dobbins because my view with the Chargers is kind of they can still improve their seeding. They're basically a lock to make the playoffs. Like, they just have to beat either the Patriots or Chiefs, and even if they lose both of those, they can still have a good chance of making it because of other teams. But
Patriots or Raiders.
What's that?
Patriots or Raiders, not Chiefs.
Oh, I thought I said Patriots Raiders, but yeah, Patriots Raiders. I don't know. I feel like they need him for the playoffs if they're going to do anything in the playoffs. So I just want to bench both him and Kamani Vidal. I think we can start off there, I guess we can call them desperation flexes, but like, man, you have to have some trust there.
Yeah, maybe they do want to see a little more of what they've gotten Vidal, like going into the playoffs. Like Gus has already been ruled out. They can probably beat New England without Dobbins. But I think he'll play a good, 35% of snaps or something this week. But yeah, they should ease him back in for sure. Be a little careful with him.
Yeah. The Niners guys are tough because they play Monday night. Garendo's limited first two practices. They have one more tomorrow. I think if you get the green light from Garendo, then like he's pretty easily up in the RB2, maybe even no brainer tier, just because the Lions defense is beat up now and not quite what they were at the beginning of the year. Like I think I'm trying to start him. If we get news that Garendo's out, which I assume we're not going to get that, so I feel like that kind of makes Patrick Taylor irrelevant because like we either not going to know and you're not starting either one, or we're going to know that Garendo's good and you're not starting Taylor. So let's just say we do get news that Garendo's out. Does Taylor get into somewhere? Desperation flex.
I don't know,
get
man.
thrown into?
I think, like, I don't know. If you're flexing Patrick Taylor, look elsewhere. Look in the at the wide receivers available on the waiver wire or something.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's kind of the move. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just definitely bench him. Obviously, James Conner's a must start if he plays. And my point of view there is I'm not worried at all. If like, oh, he's going to be limited, why would they? The Cardinals are out. They just signed him to an extension. He's an older running back. If he's not completely healthy, why are they throwing him out there? Like that doesn't really make sense to me, especially with a knee injury. So like if he's playing, he's a full go for me. I'm not even worrying about it.
Yeah, I mean the last two games are against the Rams in San Francisco, and so I don't know the full playoff picture as far as the standings, but if they have any chance to knock the Rams out of the playoffs, of course they want to do that.
Yeah, no, I think the team's going to play. I just don't know why you would throw in James Conner just to like play spoiler, like if he's part of your future now, and he's an older back. So, Trey Benson, like, does he become interesting if Connor's out? Because he's also limited and questionable. Where does Trey Benson fall into? I don't have him on here, but is he potential RB2? See what you got in Trey Benson, kind of an audition last 2 weeks of the season?
I think it's possible that is his role, but we just haven't seen anything like that. Obviously, Connor's been healthy all year, so maybe he hasn't had the opportunity, but you can't trust that that's like pure speculation, They could be using is Michael Carter still on their team? I don't even see him on the depth chart.
Michael Carter and DJ Dallas.
Yeah, so I just don't really see it as, that's 100% realistic, but nobody knows that except for the Cardinals, like what their plan is if Connor, who is trending in the right direction. I think you mentioned that, but that would be the smart thing to do, to see what they got in Benson, see if he could be, the dude behind Connor for next year, but I'm not starting him that way. I think I'm just benching. If Connor's out, I'm benching all Arizona running backs.
Yeah. Pollard and Spears. So Pollard, I think this is third straight week now where he didn't practice at all, but he's played the last 2 weeks. I throw him in the RB2 if he's in. Good matchup against Jacksonville. And if Pollard, obviously if Spears is by himself, I think he's like right up there as a no-brainer. If Pollard's in, I still think Spears is a flex. I am a little bit worried. Like, I know Spears has outproduced Pollard the last 2 weeks, but it's been 2 blowouts. And so like, that's how they've been using Spears instead of Pollard, maybe because of the injury or he's their third down guy. So I'm still a little bit hesitant, but I'm still fine throwing him in the flex. I think you'll see some work either way. And both running backs could feast here.
Yeah. Like Spears is obviously like all of his production has basically been through touchdowns. Like obviously like he gets some catches and everything, 6 for 87 a couple of weeks ago, 3 for 39. So that's always good on top, but just very inefficient on the ground. So I think basically you can start him as a flex, but it's a little scary. And then, I think, Pollard, if he does play, even though he hasn't been good, but hopefully his role kind of goes back to what it was. Like, we're assuming health, but and maybe that's a bad assumption, but it is Jacksonville that they're playing.
He has some incentives as well to hit. I think he can make like $500,000 if he gets like 2 more touchdowns and like a 90 or 100 more yards or so. So he could definitely do that in a game.
Yeah, especially against Jacksonville.
Yeah. Giants, guys, if I'm reading it right, it looks like Tyrone Tracy doesn't have an injury designation because he's DMP limited. Game status is nothing, whereas other guys who've been limited, Malik Neighbors was DMP limited, questionable, and then some other guys out. So I assume Tyrone Tracy's playing.
That's funny that he's limited off of, is that today's injury report?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, Fantasy Pros as of an hour ago is saying he's off the injury report. So
that must be what it is then. That's why they don't list it as questionable. So
yeah.
What are we doing with him? Because it's been up and down. He did have 4 catches, a touchdown, and 70 yards last week. So I think he's an RB2.
Yeah, low end RB2 for sure.
Yeah.
Like, he hasn't been as good as he was. It's been a few weeks now, but I mean, he is the guy there, Singletary's not doing anything to earn his job back or anything like that. Like, I think it's okay. I would definitely start him basically over everyone we've talked about for the last 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get into the receivers here. Now that we don't have to talk about Singletary. Number 1 overall, again, Jamar Chase, although maybe some bad weather. Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka, Mike Evans, who I think is 90 yards per game, is what he needs now to get 1,000. I just think he's going to get it. I think they're really going to force feed him. And then no-brainers, which is a very short list, and maybe we'll add a couple here, but Brian Thomas Jr., A.J. Brown's a little sketchy because it doesn't seem like Jalen Hurts is going to play, and maybe Pickett either, but Tyreek Hill.
I think Pickett is playing. Not that that's like anything to be super excited about, but I think they did say he was.
Well, it could be less running and more. AJ Brown had 15 targets last week, and most of that was from Pickett.
Yeah, I think if I heard this correctly, yeah, it says Pickett is starting. That 8 out of Pickett's first 10 targets went to AJ Brown, like something crazy like that.
Like Devontae Smith had a good game too, so I'm not super worried about them just because they're really good.
Yeah, time to bench a dude like AJ Brown.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill, Lad McConkey, and Cortland Sutton. Now, I know people are going to be like, how is Tyreek Hill a no-brainer? And here's my thought. If you made it this far with Tyreek Hill, then you just keep starting to, unless you have been, you have a bunch of the top guys. But I feel like if you've been starting Tyreek Hill and made it to the championship, you continue to do it because he can literally win you your championship, and we know what he's capable of. So that's my thoughts there. McConkey and Sutton. My question for you is Jamar Chase the number 1 overall pick in fantasy next year? Half PPR. Let's just go with half PPR. Or is it a running back like Bijan or Saquon?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make an argument for any one of those guys. I don't know what I would do as of right now if I'm sitting at number 1, but I don't know. Like, I mean, wide receivers are so just kind of up and down in general, so it's hard to like really say. I mean, look at what Lamb did last year versus what he did this year. Not that he's been like terrible or anything, but like, and even what Tyreek did, and comparatively Jamar Chase last year, So it's hard to say. It'll be interesting what happens. Like, I think if Higgins stays, I'm more interested in Jamar Chase just because he draws a decent amount of coverage as well. Mm-hmm. But I can definitely see the argument. I probably, depending on what happens in these last couple of games, like I might be leaning more towards Bijan.
Yeah. Where would you say, you mentioned CD Lamb? I don't know if you're looking at it now. Where would you say in PPR CD Lamb is in total points?
In full PPR, I don't know. Let's say 12.
He's fourth in
Oh,
total points
jeez.
and sixth in points per game. So it's like
Wow.
damn, it's just weird, like the perception of things, right? Because it's like, oh, he's been same thing with Brees, like, oh, he's been a disappointment, or Lamb's been a disappointment. It's like, yeah, he's still wide receiver 4 in points per game or total points. So just kind of interesting there. But I agree, it's not what he was amazing last year. He was the stud, right? So
I see him fourth and half.
Fourth and half.
Yeah. 100 catches, basically 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns. So
where do you see him in PPR?
I don't know. I'm not actually looking in something that I can easily switch.
Yeah, because PPR he's fourth as well. Half according to Fantasy Pros. Yeah, he's fourth and half as well.
Okay, that's interesting.
So, then we have wide receiver 2s with some upside here. Everyone has upside, but Jordan Addison, Juwan Jennings, Garrett Wilson, maybe squeaky wheel. I don't know. Cooper Kupp, I know it's crazy to put him there. Deebo Samuel. Cooper Kupp, I know people are going to be like, what the hell? He's been bad kind of 3 of the last 5 weeks, but man, he was the wide receiver 4 2 weeks ago before that Thursday night goose egg. He was wide receiver 4 in points per game. Like, I just can't imagine that's just gone, So, do the Rams get their offense together? Hopefully. And then Deebo, I mean, he had the big game. Are we buying back into Deebo now? Damn, we were waiting all year and we finally got something. And, 7 catches, almost 100 yards. I think he had 25 yards on the ground. Are we trusting Deebo as a wide receiver 2 with upside?
I don't know, man. We all knew this was possible, I wonder how much his rushing is going to. I need to look at something else besides sleeper because I can never see the wide receivers rushing stats.
Pro Football Reference.
What was his rushing line last year or last week? I mean,
5 carries for 25 yards.
Yeah, so nothing crazy, but still definitely, it definitely helps.
Really
but I don't know. I mean, we did see even 2 weeks ago, even though he had at least one bad drop that could have been a touchdown. We would have felt a lot better about him if that had happened, obviously. But they were trying to get him more involved since he was kind of complaining about not being super involved. So I can see it. I think kind of similar to what you said about Cooper Kupp and what you were just saying about Tyreek Hill. Yeah, where it's if you made it this far with these guys, and whether or not you were starting them, it's you can definitely slot them in. I think Deebo, it's hard for me to just jump back in oh, he's back, because that game was definitely the outlier. But I mean, San Francisco just has some weirdness going on in general, their team, they've already been eliminated. They got eliminated before their game even started last week, I think, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Players want to play. Deebo needs to, show that he's still got it. I think he'll still be a big part of the offense. So I think, wide receiver 2 with upside, yeah, it's fine. Or wide receiver 3 with upside. I can definitely, I think in 3 wide receiver leagues, especially if there's a flex, which most of them have that, you're starting him. I mean, would you go as far to say are we ready to go back to Deebo over Jennings? Because not Jennings has been doing much either,
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a coin flip between those 2 guys. Easily, they could both have a good game. I don't know if we've really seen that, but
Yeah, I think the matchup's a big one too. They're playing the Lions in a potential high scoring game. So, um, that's appealing as well. I do think one of those guys go off. So just kind of put them both there.
Sure.
Solid wide receiver twos. I mean, Jacoby Myers, Calvin Ridley, yeah, they have upside. We did see kind of a down game from Jacoby Myers last week, but he was pretty good before that. A good floor, not a lot of upside, just given the quarterback in the offense. Ridley, I don't really know where to put him exactly, but he gave you 3 for 78 and a touchdown. He's been kind of a pretty safe floor recently, and not a whole lot of upside, to be honest, but just think they're kind of solid wide receiver twos / maybe threes.
Yeah, the script has kind of flipped with him, right? I don't know. I think he hasn't been Ridley hasn't been super targeted like he was kind of in around the middle of the season. Not that he was heavily, but he was the standout obvious dude. I mean, and then they don't really have anything else going on there anyway. So yeah, I think you can start Ridley as a wide receiver 3 basically.
They've Chigakonkwo. He's been going off.
What the hell?
Wide receiver 3s, these are guys that I love to have as my wide receiver 3 because I feel like a lot of them can win you games. I mean, maybe we should put Devontae Smith higher as a solid wide receiver 2, but Jameson, Devontae Smith, Shakir, Jaden Reed, Mooney, McMillan, when it comes to Mooney, Reed, and Jameson, I feel like they're kind of boom bust, but maybe not boom bust, but boom / solid floor, So Jaden Reed is a boom bust, but those are again guys I like to start in my wide receiver 3 spot. Hopefully I can survive it. Should we move Devontae to solid wide receiver 2? I mean, now that we know Pickett's in, because he still had a good game with Pickett, 8 targets, 6 catches, 51 yards. That's 2. It's kind of 3 good games in a row, I'd say. So
yeah,
is he more of a wide receiver 2?
Yeah, I mean, we know what his upside is. We haven't seen that crazy game from him this year, but we've seen him in the past, and yeah, I think he's an obvious start. So I think that does put him more in the solid wide receiver 2 category. And the nice thing about Mooney was the game, he caught 5 of his 6, there we go, targets last week for 82 yards. So that was good to see that he was obviously still able to be productive with Penix. He didn't just do a complete disappearing act. So I think he's kind of right in that same kind of category. We've seen more boom from him, I'd say, than Devontae Smith. Maybe, it's probably pretty close actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Darnell Mooney still this week, and I think Atlanta's going to have to try and keep up with Washington for sure. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another 5 for 80 this week.
Yeah. 3 wide receiver and a flex, guys. I mean, Romeo Doubs, I always talk about it, runs a lot of routes, good offense, and he's going to have games every now and then. So, if you're going this deep, he's not a bad one to do, but, he can also give you just 2 for 20 like he did last week. Romeo Doubs met Josh Downs. It's tough when your quarterback only throws 12 passes or whatever. Still managed to get a good game, but if they just throw it a little bit more, and Anthony Richardson, I heard, might be out. If Joe Flacco is playing,
I guess he is. Richardson is questionable. I thought he said that he seems unlikely to play. Oh wow!
Yeah,
I thought I heard the opposite of that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Downs probably moves up, and then Quentin Johnston, he needs a touchdown, but he is one of the leading touchdown getters this year. So I don't really want to spend too much time on those guys. They are what they are. I have the congrats tier. It's if you made the championship with Marvin Harrison Jr., congratulations. You have a really good team.
Yeah, no
And
shit,
again,
right?
just do what you've been doing, I guess, with him lately. But yeah, he was your maybe your wide receiver 1, and you somehow made it. So yeah, congrats there. This is the bench slash does it even matter tier. Like again, like if you're in the championship and you're starting these guys, like I don't think anyone really in the championship, unless you play in deeper leagues, are starting these guys. So these are the kind of the next guys up of the list. If you do play in deeper leagues, these are the next guys to potentially be talking about. So I do want to just get to this injury tier here to kind of wrap this up. But
what changes about Pittman if Flacco plays? Let's see. Flacco played 4, 5, 6, and 9 and 10. 4, 5, 6. Oh, and then Pittman missed the game. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter because he had basically 2 good games target wise and stuff, and didn't do one actual good game. So no, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe he sneaks into that 3 wide receiver / flex tier, but yeah. So Devontae Adams, I think, is a must start if he plays, like a no brainer. I think T Higgins is there as well, even though potential bad weather. Terry McLaurin is there, so that no brainer tier gets bigger. Blake Neighbors is probably there, although he doesn't have a whole lot of upside. But I mean, he's just going to get a bunch of targets. Drake London is a no brainer. Thielen, Watson, and Judy. What are we doing with Adam Thielen if he plays wide receiver 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like he's the obvious dude there. Leggett, did he get ruled out again?
I think he's on IR.
Not that he's like a huge threat, but I'm just thinking like one less dude. Listed as questionable. God, Mike, I guess the second guy you thought was on IR. Maybe because it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Just check out.
Yeah, it's like who gives a shit about Leggett.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see you next year. Yeah, no, I think Thielen, you're still rolling him out as a wide receiver 3. Obviously better in PPR, but most guys are, I guess. Who was the other one you asked me about?
What about Judy?
Oh man, what a sad state of affairs that is. Like it's just I feel like you can't even start Judy. I mean,
potential bad weather as well.
Yeah, you can as a flex, but they've already said DTR is the dude. So you know what you're going to get with Judy. Probably not much, So I don't want to start him, but that's like desperation flex territory. It sucks to go from like a wide receiver 2 with upside to.
Well, he was like a top 7 receiver for like a 5-week stretch there. It was insane.
I know, right? Like it was like crazy. I think people are still kind of starting him that way after a couple of weeks with Jameis, where it was like, oh, I don't know, it's just going to keep going, and it did, But I mean, the drop off was crazy.
Sad.
Went from 14 targets with Jameis's last game to 3 last week, still playing 90% of the snaps. Yeah. And what the hell's going on with Cedric Tillman, man? Why can't he get healthy?
It was a concussion, right? It must have been pretty bad concussion.
Must be. I mean, that's 4 games now that he's already ruled out for this week. This will be the 5th game.
Yeah, wow. It sucks.
Yeah.
Christian Watson, Mr. Always Injured, makes a big play and gets injured. Like he's a DMP all week. If he plays, where do we put him? I don't even know what he did last week. I don't know. It's just
he didn't have his catch. He didn't make his catch. I think he's kind of like that desperate. Like he's in that flex category. I think because he is one of those guys. Like if he's gonna play, he's obviously healthy enough to like be out there. Like it's a big game for Green Bay to win, division rivals and stuff. Like obviously they can't win their division or anything, but they don't want to see Minnesota take it all the way. Like if they can prevent it, you know. So
it's interesting is I will be curious how Green Bay plays. I mean, obviously they're going to play their starters and stuff, but I don't think they can really change their seeding at all because I don't think they're going to beat out. Yeah, they're not going to beat out the Vikings or Lions, whoever doesn't win the division for the 5th seed.
right.
And they've already beaten out. I think they've already beaten out the Rams essentially, or whoever is the last seed there. So it will be interesting to see. They're probably going to be more cautious with Watson for that reason. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a thought there. Like I understand they don't want, they want to beat Minnesota for sure, but I don't think they're going to sacrifice health for anyone to do it,
Yeah, true. And they are basically saying that he's unlikely to play, or it's a long shot, but
go figure. Christian Watson, long shot to play. That's
right?
just, yeah, man, talent's there, but just can't stay healthy. But Green Bay's wide receiver core is just kind of weird. Like Jordan Love, you look at his stats and stuff, and you're like, I guess they're not amazing and mind blowing, but there's not really one receiver you can rely on, and we all consider them one of the better offenses in the league, and Jordan Love at least as like a top 12 quarterback, right? Like there's just not really any receiver we can rely on that team. You always get one of those teams every now and then. It's just like, damn, kind of like the Chiefs, like Mahomes' big years, when back a couple years ago when he had like 50 touchdowns or whatever, it was like Juju was like the main guy to rely on. It was weird.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, besides Kelsey, but
yeah, I know. Yeah. And it's crazy because every time I look at Love's stats, I'm like still kind of surprised. Like, wow, I can't believe like how bad he's been. Like, not that he's been like terrible losing your weeks necessarily, but it's just, I mean, quarterback 17, like he's on pace for what, maybe 3,600 yards, something like that. I'm just kind of doing the math.
Yeah.
And I know 30 touchdowns is a lot, but I was going to say not even 30 touchdowns, but I mean, shit, like if he keeps going this way, he'll be at like 27. The interception problem that he's not running at all.
He did miss 2 games, so keep that in mind.
Let's make excuses. No, actually, I didn't notice that. I forgot that was like at the beginning of the year, so I did kind of forget that.
Yeah, he's averaging 240 a game. So if he has 2 more games plus the 2 he missed, that would give him around 4,100 yards. So 24 touchdowns. Basically, yeah, I mean, he'd be over 4,030. So a little bit better numbers. But yeah, I mean, it's not as good for sure. Feels like they're running it more with Josh Jacobs. Green Bay is 3rd in run percentage at 51.6%.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs has just been like tearing it up, man. Ever since the bye.
Whereas last year they were 14th at 43%, so they 8% more running. So that will kind of make up that difference. But that is it. We wish you all good luck. We'll be live tomorrow morning for the last. I mean, won't be the last live stream, but it'll be the last. For starting and sitting for this year. Appreciate everyone all year long. Go win your championships. Go win some money. And yeah, any last words there, Brian?
No. Yeah, get it, man. Get it.
Yeah. And hopefully you're not already behind the 8 ball. Hopefully you're ahead of you. You started Henry and Jackson, and you played against all the duds. So,
and there were a lot of them.
There were. We will see everyone tomorrow morning and in future videos. We'll catch you all then.